I'll call the vote. Ingrid?
Yeah, approve.
Jim? Jim? He's muted. Jim, do you approve the minutes? Can you hear me?
I don't think he can hear you.
Maybe not. Susan, do you approve?
I approve.
John?
Approve.
Want me to hold up his sign?
Yeah, I approve as well. I'll try again. Jim, can you hear us?
It's going to be a rough meeting for him.
Oh, we got 4 votes, so I think that counts, right?
That counts.
Josh,
Okay, good.
Josh, do you have Jim's cell number?
I do not.
I'll
believe
text
do.
it to you. To
I
see.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can text him. Sorry, John. We can try to get him back online.
No worries. All right. Is there any public comment?
John, not at this time. We haven't received anything as of this afternoon. I'll check again with Selena.
Okay, excellent. That brings us to principal's report with Rhonda.
She not hearing us?
What's Josh's email? I can email Jim's
Rhonda's
contact.
muted as well. So you're having some challenges too. So I wonder.
So we've been having trouble with Google
Yeah.
Meet, but not Zoom.
All right.
But now we're having trouble with Zoom.
There you are,
There
Rhonda.
she is. There she is. Okay, I was gonna go ahead and read it, but thank God she's here.
Josh
Talk
sent
fast.
something that I could unmute on the screen. So thank you, Josh, or I'm assuming that was you. The little bar that says unmute was not showing up. Oh, you know what? I just figured out why. Never mind. So my principal's report for our enrollment, it's about the same as it was in November. It really hasn't been that long since our last, between having Thanksgiving and then having the November meeting a week later because of Veterans Day. We really haven't had that many school days since our last meeting. Greg Dow and his team received the Rockstar Award for November. We've had some people sign up for second semester. The homeschool sign up went out today, but last week the virtual only and the in-person only went out. We've had 78 of our 122 in-person and virtual academy students respond so far. 72 want to stay in person, 2 want to stay virtual, and 4 want to switch from virtual to in person. That switching is really going to depend on building capacity at this point. There are some people who want to come back and there's space in classrooms, and there are some people who want to come back and there aren't space in classrooms. So we'll see how that all shakes out in another week when the deadline happens. The school committee last month had asked for kind of a breakdown of the 2 CRF grants. So I put a table for each one. We didn't, in CRF 1, these were the 6, 7 categories that we were able to get funding for. The buses and vans and the nutrition equipment, things for the cafeteria, we didn't purchase or require anything in those 2 areas. The contracted services was our biggest category, and so we paid for extra custodial staff, we paid for subs to be in the building. Our safe return to school team was paid from that. We helped pay for a virtual academy teacher out of that. That was the majority of that money, about half of it. And there was extra custodial for over the summer and extra custodial for during the school year. And then we were paying for the extra high school bus runs that were happening in the middle of the day when those were happening out of that line. So I don't know how that all shook out, and we're still kind of, I don't have access to what we've spent in that category. So that's why there's the question mark. In the CRF2, that was structured differently. We could come up with our own projects instead of it being in those particular categories. And so technology, we spent 59 of our 60,000. The furniture, we have paid for that. It's going to be shipped soon on the 17th. So we're getting desks and chairs for classrooms so that we can, the 7th and 8th graders are coming back on Monday. We're going to do the best we can until the desks and chairs come, but that's for them and for the cafeteria and for Sonia's room and Kelly and Lynn's room. Classroom supplies, each teacher had $500 and most everybody spent their $500. Personnel, I'm not quite sure that came out to be exactly 4,500, but it was a relatively small number. So I just put the 0 in for unspent. Outdoor classroom, we've had some projects happening on the north side of the school. We had a fence put in so to make it a little bit more pleasant for kids to be out there. It was pretty ratty. We took all the shrubs and everything out that were growing up, the weeds that were growing up through the metal fence and the twisted metal fence. And we'll plant some nice, the kids will help and plant some nice things out there and make it more visually appealing. PPE, we spent quite a lot in the first CRF grant, so we're stockpiled pretty high. I originally had put in 15,000 on that line, and when I saw that we weren't spending it, I dropped it down to 10,000 when we had an opportunity, and I moved 5,000 of that money to the virtual academy. Music, we put in 8,000 for the ORF instruments. We got a price for the key card entry, and he'll be coming and putting that in for the outside doors pretty soon. Pro cleaners, we had, this was something else that got shifted from the original. We had a custodian out, so I put money in for pro cleaners to come and clean for a couple of weeks. And I actually budgeted for the rest of December because I really wasn't sure how that was all going to shake out. So that custodian is back, and we don't need to spend the rest of that money. So between, let's see, I took, oh, I know, there was also money that I had put in for the district operations manager that we ended up not doing. So between that and downing the PPE money, we were able to put money in for the virtual academy. And I don't know where that, how much of that is being spent. But we had
all spent.
Yeah, excellent.
It was incredibly helpful because we were facing some need to add technology as well as some pretty heavy duty subscriptions and supplies because teachers finally were getting to the point where they knew what they were going to need for the rest of the year. So I just want to thank Pematech again for supporting that. All of the schools have supported it either out of CRF1 or out of CRF2 in different ways, but Pematech came to our aid when we were waving the flag.
We're going to be talking about that, the summary of this year's budget in a little bit, but Nancy and I met the other day to get started on next year's budget. Mike B. and Carol Null both received Emory grants, so congratulations to them. That helps with our STEAM program. And then Greg and his team have continued to work on that outside fence, but under the foyer, he gave me some information about an hour ago. He looked at the blueprints, the heat, talking about that foyer, what's underneath the 2 steps up and 2 steps down. The heat comes from the ceiling. The water supply is in the first floor ceiling and the second floor. So it's in between the 2 floors. So there's no water supply going through there. There's no heat going through there. The sewer drops 1/4 of an inch for every foot from the locker rooms. Everything from the locker rooms, the bathrooms, the gym office, all of that flows underneath where the hallway slants. And then it runs basically over to Carolyn Todd's office and then follows the wall, but it's dropping 1/4 of an inch for every foot all that way. So Greg believes that by the time it gets to the foyer, it's a good 1.5 to 2 feet underneath the floor, and not the foyer floor, but like the office floor. He drilled 3 holes, one pretty closer to the outside wall. He drilled from the office. He was able to go in about 8 inches and then he hit steel. Then he moved in closer towards the hallway. He was by the sign-in window. He was able to go in about 12 inches. And he hit something hard. He wasn't sure what. And then 16 further into the hallway, he went in about 16 inches and hit something hard, and he was jamming the bit. And he thinks that maybe he hit a footing. So he proposes that we take a tile up out of the foyer and go in from that direction. And then he can, we have replacement tiles, so he can repair whatever it is that he takes up and put down a new tile.
I say he just keeps drilling holes all around.
Hey, John, can I make just a quick point? I'm very impressed, Rhonda, but I just want to make sure you didn't consult with your civil engineer son with that assessment down there, because you did a pretty good job. And I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek chuckling that you're able to go through that pretty methodically, but you don't have an engineering degree, do you?
No.
Nope, didn't think so. But that's pretty impressive, Rhonda. Great job.
And I don't know anything about buildings.
Which is
I'm learning.
which is a segue to operations at some point. But okay, yes, you got my point.
I mean, the rest of the report is awesome. It's just some pictures of kids in their classrooms working hard, doing some cool stuff. Kindergarten just shows them doing some reading and some writing, and there's a link to the 3rd graders earlier in the year at the Wendell Gilling Museum. The 4th graders just finished the Tiger Rising. Oops, there's a little bit of Ed Mishu got his Orff instruments in, so those are different size xylophones. So there are a couple of pictures of the 4th graders trying those out. And in middle school, the 5th graders just finished reading Hatchet. 7th grade participated in the island-wide read. And then there's a picture of the 8th graders out on their morning break with Mrs. Clark, and they recently got some hula hoops, and so they're basically playing ring toss and using her as the post, but they were having fun. So it's all not serious at Pematic. We have fun too.
Rhonda,
I have a question about the key card, the keyless entry. Is that every entrance and exit, or is it just the main?
It's, I think, 7 of them. Yeah, it's expensive just to get the setup, right? And the software and all of that. And then you'll see we want to add to it some inside doors, but you know, we've got the basic, like we actually don't need one at the main door because it's not where staff or anybody other than visitors go in. It's one by the music room, the one that the staff use in the back, the one at the end of the wing that faces Maple Lane, and the one by the playground. And perhaps the one on the north side. I can't remember now. And and a couple of inside doors.
Rhonda, is the system allow you to program new cards when you need them?
Mm-hmm.
From experience, I would get extra cards because in 18 months that system might not exist anymore and you can't get them and you're screwed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yep. And we can also deactivate them.
Right.
That's the key.
It's definitely worth being an annual, audit of, okay, how many, at the end of the school year, all right, everybody turn in your keys. Let's make sure we haven't lost any and, reset them or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And does anybody else have any other questions about the report?
Hey, John, just a quick piece, if I may, because I don't get a superintendent report, and that's probably a good thing. But I want to give Rhonda, I want to give a shout out to Rhonda as a principal, all the staff, certainly the teachers and all the support staff. These guys are doing some incredible work, and our kids too, and parents that are just working real hard during these really difficult times for everybody. I know folks want things to be quote unquote normal, and we're all in a situation that is well, it's especially strained during holiday seasons, and I just appreciate everybody's working hard, and in particular, our teachers and our administrators and all of our support staff have. This has not been within anybody's wheelhouse, and I know that we are all aware of that, but I just want to take an opportunity in this forum during this time to recognize how hard people are working. And in closing, I just want to really give a shout out to all of our nurses. We miss Nurse Emily, but Barb has really stepped up to support Barb Logue, the school, and we have a new nurse coming to join us, but the hospital has been amazing in providing coverage, and we could not keep our schools going and keep our schools open safely without our nurses. So I really appreciate that, and the support the community gives to our nurses when they pick up the phone and give news that we may not want to hear. And the last quick thing, just before we move on, and I'll give an overview, but my hat's off to all the staff. We did the first phase of the benchmark testing today, and the people that planned and implemented that, it was just amazing. They did a great job, and appreciate the support of the parents in being flexible today to allow that to happen. So thanks a lot.
Good. Yeah, so Rhonda, the testing went pretty well at Pematic. Everything was smooth.
Yeah, it went very well.
Did we get 100% participation or close to?
Close to it.
That's good.
It's voluntary, John. So there were folks that for very good reasons that may have chosen to opt out, but it was a very, very, very small and select group. So I don't have that number in front of me, but I'm going to follow up on that piece. But people widely across, not just Pematic, but throughout the district were overwhelmingly supportive.
Mm-hmm. And there are a couple of people who weren't able to test today that they're going to fit them in tomorrow. So thank you to the nurses for being flexible and getting those people in.
Do we have a timeline on getting results back?
48 hours. The tests that were done today were sent out by courier before the end of the day. And they are overnighted to the testing facility, which is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so in the way it works too is we don't get the results. The administration, the employee will receive a notification. And all employees, myself, Rhonda, anybody that's tested, if we receive notification of a positive test, our instructions are to contact our school nurse, our principal or immediate supervisor, and our primary care physician. So the protocol's been laid out, and we should have the remaining staff, the high school and central office, done tomorrow. So before the end of the weekend, if all things go as planned, we should know the initial results of the benchmark testing, and then we move into sentinel testing.
It's good. Yeah, the timing is nice because if there is something that pops up, at least then we have the weekend to deal with it.
Yeah.
John.
Curious, with the two cases, at the high school and in Connors Emerson, is that process, the informing process that happened there, did everything work smoothly? Did you guys decide, hey, we need to tweak it? Anything like that?
John, John,
Okay,
thanks for throwing me a softball, because I can't give enough kudos to first Matt Haney and his team, and Barb Neely and her team, and our nurses. I want to be careful as I say this, but textbook, because they followed the textbook. All of the plans that everybody worked so hard over the summer. Ingrid was part of that process, as were many other folks, developing a framework, following our standard operational procedures, and folks did it. And the beautiful thing about this, what I love about the system, is it's not me, it's not Rhonda, it's not a principal that says we close a school, or we have a team. And that team is led by medical professionals, our nurses working directly with CDC. So yes, the short answer is things worked as planned. The anxiety is high for anybody, whether you're directly impacted or not directly impacted. So there's a social emotional piece to this as well. So we're learning a lot, and we're sharing lessons learned from each of our principals. We did that as an A team with our nurses. We will continue to do that. I take lessons learned with area superintendents. So, if there's a silver lining, each time we have a challenge, we're able to step back, look at what went well, look at what we can do better, and continue to educate. So in that regard, I think we're in a good place, and we keep our fingers crossed. And I can't emphasize enough that in order to keep our schools open, our daycares open, our community entities open, folks need to do the right thing. And schools and students and staff modeling the masking, the physical distancing, we're doing the right things. And I believe that's why we're still in school. It's the choices we make, including me, outside of school, that are going to keep the determinations as to whether we can keep our schools open. And that's the key. So thanks.
Anybody else have any other questions? Julie, do you have something?
Well, I was not a question. I was just going to comment that so there's something that's invisible that I think Pematic is handling really, really well. And I want you to know that. But it's still really, really rough. So I'm working with teachers and trying to figure out, like, what is it that's actually frying people, like what is the thing? And so it's this combination between not knowing how careful you need to be for this pernicious, deadly virus versus what's overkill. What can you do to help this particular kid who needs a shoelace tied, needs some math work looked at, needs to be asked their version of what happened, and staying with the protocols. And it's just like, yes, you have to rethink everything, because if things are 6 feet apart and you're going out a different entrance and you're walking in a different way and you're going to a different part of the playground and you're thinking about doing small groups in a really different way, all of that rethinking is exhausting. But then there's just this constant tension between fear of this disease and belief that the protocols will keep us safe, and fear that they're not adequately meeting the needs of kids. And so I just want to share that, because it's kind of an interesting dilemma that all of our teachers are working within. And I think Pematic teachers are among those who are doing well with it, and they're really working with it, and they're really working closely with Rhonda to come up with some solutions about every new thing. How are we going to do this? Well, how are we going to do this? Well, how are we going to do this? And they have been unfailingly stepping up. And I think Rhonda can say that, but it's almost more important for you to hear that it's really clear to other people as well, but it's exhausting.
Thank you for bringing that up, Julie. I would echo everything you said. It's that constant tension, that push-pull of wanting to do right by kids, but how do you do that and still work within the parameters of what we need to be working under? So, and I think our teachers are doing, and our whole staff is doing a fabulous job.
For our school, or you heard from anybody that they're not going to make it through the year, that we're going to have people who are potentially needing to step aside?
I think that there are people who do this, right? Like for a couple of days, they're like, I can't do this anymore. And then they come back out of it and they're ready to push on again, because it's not just COVID or it's not just school. People have other things going on in their lives too. So there's just a lot of pressure on a lot of different people right now, coming from a lot of different places.
I think that Rhonda captured that really well, but I would say too, there's no defined box for anybody. There's always the opportunity for anybody that's feeling the need for support to be able to take a step back, everybody just needs to be able to know what their resources are. I would encourage people to, along with that healthcare benefits we provide, there's also support there for people to talk through issues. There are association folks that they can talk to for support. And certainly we want to be there, the business office, but some folks elected early on in the year to take some leaves. We had some folks in other schools do that, and that was the right choice for them at the right time. But we're all in this together, and it impacts different people different ways on different days. And I just want people to know, as superintendent, and I think I'm speaking for Rhonda too, as principal, as administrators, Julie, all of us, we're sensitive to that. We care about our people. We're really lucky we have the people we have, and we're not blind to the fact that it's hard for people right now. But if there's a silver lining, that we know this is going to get better, and we're going to be able to come out of this. But we have to be very cognizant of the times we're in. And that's why we're so blessed to have the support of the community and the school committees on the early release. That's one big piece that's going to allow our teachers to be able to have the time to network and collaborate. So it's sometimes those things that we may not consider that are the most impactful. And then the flexibility the school committee has provided us in allowing the trust for people to be able to do their jobs in ways that we know they're professionals and they're going to be able to continue to work through that. So I just want to give a thanks for the flexibility and the understanding during this time. But in closing, John, I guess what I would say to anybody out there is that you're not alone, and if you need support, let us know.
Anybody else have any questions for Rhonda? Nope. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you for everything you're doing. Next on the agenda is the budget, I believe. I lost my agenda.
You're right,
Yes.
John. And while we're chipping over to that, if I can just give a very quick overview before Rhonda steps in, would that be okay?
Mhm.
So a shout out again every year to Nancy Thurlow. With all that she juggles and everything that people are doing, I'd be remiss if I didn't say she's managing 11 budgets plus. Actually, it's 22 now with CRF. Yeah, she's got 22 plus grants and entitlements, but she still smiles and still keeps churning these numbers out. One of the things that may raise eyebrows for the school committee, and then this is public information, but this preliminary budget summary shows a unaudited figure, carry forward figure of $590,302. It's a lot of money. And one might say, holy cow, what are you guys doing? Are you managing your money correctly? It's always important to put some context here. So first and foremost, we're in the middle of a pandemic, number one. And so many of the expenditures we would have had under a budget might look a little different. Certainly they'll all be audited, but some of the things to call to your attention are we had 112 of that 590,000, which is, we projected about 250,000, which is a fairly conservative amount for a normal carry forward figure on a budget of this size. So of the difference of 342,000, 112,000 was carry forward from the previous year. So that's money that we had planned on. Additional income, 18,000, 53,000 in additional GPA, general purpose aid to education or state subsidy. Salary savings, 36,000, 41,000 in Blue Cross Blue Shield, 26,000 in heat, electricity, water, sewerage, and 29,000 in special services. So that coupled with, we're in a pandemic, and we also had things charged to CRF. So we just need some time to be able to put more context to that. But I'll close with this: that differential of over $300,000 is not going to be uncommon for any of the budgets in any of our AOS member schools per capita. Last night we did Trenton's, and they had a similar number, 300,000 of a differential. So I think, and Nancy and I believe, you're going to see that trend consistent, not only among schools, not only among our district, but across the state. You'll see that. And I can't say enough, and I know this school committee has done their due diligence. We need to be really careful with how you plan that carry forward as you're contemplating your next budget, because we will see a cliff. I absolutely guarantee in at least 2 years, you're going to see a cliff, and we want to plan forward for that. So, Rhonda, I'll turn it over to you. Did I miss anything on that? Okay, it's all yours. Thanks, Rhonda.
Yeah. Basically, the biggest differences that you see between the current budget and what we expect to spend this year is in the areas of salaries. So we either ended up hiring people at a lower salary than what we had budgeted for, or we hired somebody in a different category higher than at a higher step than what we had budgeted for. So those are the biggest things. summer school didn't look like it did last year, and obviously Learning Lab didn't happen. So we saved a little bit there on that line. I'm not really sure what you want me to go over on us. Does anybody have any specific questions? John?
On the, like I'm looking at the carryover, and there's that 29,000 special services. I'm assuming that's an unfilled ed tech position, perhaps. Basically, are we meeting our mandated needs in that area?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yep. It's a little bit harder this year because we're trying to keep everybody potted,
Of course.
but yeah.
That's potted with a D, right?
Yes.
Not potted.
Just to add just 2 lines of context from the state. The curriculum leaders met with the Commissioner of Education this morning. And one of the things she said was that she was able to, even though there was a cut to the general funds at the statewide level for education. Should there be a different administration, or should there be record deficits, we might not be able to hold on to that. So that's another reason why the subsidies have actually gone up twice in the last 2 years, but they may not keep going up. So just to echo what Mark said, we still can't trust that the state's contribution is stable.
Mhm. Ingrid?
This isn't really a question, it's more of a comment. I know that we participate in the Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust at Harbor House, and there has been a 0 increase in health insurance. And we typically are higher and have been higher the entire time that we've been participating in that health trust relative to the health trust that oversees the schools. So I think that we, because we know that money is going to go to carry forward if it's not spent. And so I think we at Pematic and we as a district should be thinking about that relative to our budgets, because I think 10 is far higher than what we need. And I also, this is a side note because we're not the ones deciding this, but the asymptomatic testing that we have in place for the AOS on the AOS budget, to me that feels like something that we don't need to be budgeting for, because I think we're going to be long into this vaccine process before we go back to school in September, and that money is lost from, yes, it's carry forward, but it's carry forward at the AOS level. It comes out of our communities and goes up there. So those are just 2 things that I think need a little bit more thought.
John, may I respond just quickly? And Ingrid, this is not point counterpoint. This is just a little context. For health insurance, I don't disagree with you at all, Ingrid. We're always very conservative in those projections, and I don't disagree that we may want to consider an adjustment there. I'm just the thing that makes me nervous is with all the 11 budgets we do across, there are some that we have to lock in now. Some of our schools or local boards are able to defer until we get that information as to what that rate actually is. One of the things that we're looking at, and this is true not only with superintendents, but the industry, is some of our savings in health insurance are some of the things that have caused rates to stay down in some areas are the fact that elective surgeries or some procedures have not occurred during COVID. Now, so that means that they may in fact have been deferred, and we might see things down the road. But it's true that when we get our ratings, we may see those decrease, and we should plan for that. But I just want to caution folks too, that down the road, we may see that rise again, number one. And in terms of the testing, I don't disagree, Ingrid. I hold out hope that the vaccine will arrive as planned. My research, and I'm certainly not a physician, but we have to have 70% of our nation vaccinated in order for this to take effect. And whether or not we're able to achieve that, so be it, and whether or not a vaccine is available. But the reason I put that into the AOS, and to be very frank, I could have worked with principals to put it in individual budgets. And so $80,000 is a lot of money, but it would have looked a little different in the local budgets. But my final point is that if ultimately why I included that in the budget is based upon recommendations from the task force, the hospital, and medical professionals. So I believe it's warranted, but I understand the concern with the number. So thanks for just allowing me to give a little background.
Susan.
Well, I guess my comment on that, Mark, is that, again, being a COVID year, we can explain that it would likely be lower due to deferred elective surgeries. And I feel like in the past, we've well set up our community to understand that a prudent budget would be 10%, and that we would be set up to go back there if we were wanting to choose to, take that lower number this year. But that's my comment on that. My question really was about the reserves. I know that we have been building our special ed reserve back up since we drew it down pretty heavily a few years ago. The note about transferring to the reserve, I'm assuming that's meaning the AOS reserve?
No. So you have, thank you, Susan. John, may I? Yeah. So what Nancy and I discussed was you're at now you're at $275,000 at your local reserve. And I'll talk about the AOS reserve in a moment. That's a very healthy amount, and it may raise some eyebrows, but if you think about this, an out of district placement for one student is about $100,000. So you are not over the top here. What the question mark is that if you transfer that $30,000, do you want to do that? And if you do that, you'll have a balance of approximately $305,000, well, $306,000. And Nancy and I would recommend at that point that you cap it, that you're good, and you don't have to put any more to that in future years. We believe it's very prudent, and that's a healthy reserve. Now that's separate from the AOS reserve. So that's $30,000 you could look at to either add to your reserve, or it goes to carry forward also. Yeah. Yes.
It would be my recommendation to do it now. And again, next year, as we anticipate costs rising again, then we have capped that. I was just wondering, the AOS reserve is a completely different item. It doesn't come from this one.
No. So the AOS reserve is something that every member school contributes to. The balance, and again, don't quote me, it's north of 500,000, south of 600,000, but it's capped out at 675,000. The way it works is that you have a $275,000 balance. If you exceeded your budget and you had to go into that, you would have to exhaust that completely before you went to the AOS reserve. So it's a backup to the backup. And then the way it works is that you have to pay the reserve back at an interest rate set by the superintendent, and it's a nominal fee. And
And then funding that AOS reserve, do
It's-
all sending schools fund it equally,
Yes.
or is it a?
no,
formula?
it's, I'll double check on that, Susan. I want, and I'll answer that question on Monday. I want to make sure before I speak, I'm accurate on that.
I knew it once.
Yeah,
Well,
me
it's already
too.
been funded, right? I mean, we're not contributing to it yearly because it already,
No, I know, but
No,
when we have, was
Oh, yeah.
it every school gave 30 grand or whatever in
Right.
that 1 year? I don't know.
that you did an amount every school equal where you seeded it, but then you've slowly have added to it each year. And I think your question is it the same amount for each school? But the long and the short of that is, at the cap of 675,000, the district is almost there.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's also something that people will see, not adding to budgets.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
and I just have to say about reserves, in my career in public education, it's extraordinary that the majority of our schools have little debt or are well on track to exhaust any capital debt. And reserve accounts are not something that you see across many districts. They're good things because you don't have to go back and ask municipalities for additional funds. But wow, this is the envy of many superintendents and school districts, to be financially positioned the way you folks are.
Mhm.
You guys have been very prudent with your finances.
On that, is there any other area that we don't have a reserve that we should consider having a reserve? But also, I noticed like the playground wasn't listed
Yeah.
there. We have a
Yeah.
separate reserve for the playground.
I think that's one, John. You already checked the box of playground, and I don't know, maybe Rhonda could speak to that. But you don't need a tuition reserve because you're part of the AOS. Some of our member schools have tuition reserves, but no, you have bus, special education, and capital improvement. Those are the big three.
The maintenance and minor remodeling one, the 30,000, it's split up. 15,000 is playground and 15,000 is building.
So even though it's lumped in this one reserve, we're keeping separate accounting for our playground dollars. Okay.
Yeah, we'll have Nancy break it out when you show your proposed budget. We'll have that in there.
Is that fence project that's going on, is that being handled? I mean, that wasn't in the original budget, so is that just being handled out of the
It's
whatever the pot that was, maintenance?
It came out of the outdoor classroom project
Oh,
for
right.
CRF.
Right. Okay.
Trying to make it a more pleasant space for kids to be out there instead of a wire fence.
What about the same thing for the fence on the south side, the post office side?
That's the one I'm talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Will we need to add more money to a maintenance reserve as we start to look at some of the projects from the Sealander report? Or is that, what we talked about pulling from the debt service, which we're done paying on at this point, right?
I would say we take the biggest project first coming down the pike.
Yeah, that would be that front entrance. We also have the wing windows that need replacing.
which it
Rhonda.
sounds like that front entrance could be cheaper than what was originally thought, right? I mean, if we're not having to move a whole bunch of stuff, that should be significantly cheaper than what Sealander thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because
But
we
I-
also have the horseshoe is in desperate need of fixing. Half
Rhonda,
of the parking spots are underwater.
Rhonda, that whole area, including the front entrance, sounds like maybe this buried treasure, like the Oak
Maybe.
Island treasure under there or something. I don't know, but it's very mysterious.
Yeah. He kept hitting something, but who knows what he was hitting. So I think we'll know more if he rips a tile up and can
Maybe-
really get in
maybe-
there and look
maybe-
around.
Maybe it's a time capsule.
Maybe. I think
What,
it might be a solid chunk of cement.
the Sealander report is probably 2 years old now.
It was
more than
done
that.
before I started, so, and this is my 4th year.
Yeah, it's 5 or 6 years old.
All right, then we might actually want to refresh it.
We had
before
him
making
come back
decisions.
either my 1st or 2nd year, and he reassessed the front project and bumped the price up on that and on the windows. Those were the only 2 things that
Okay.
were left. They've been the only 2 things left. But we've
What-
been
what
waiting for
about
that
the-
debt service.
What about the, all the concerns about the heating system really not cutting it last year in terms of, this
Um,
classroom sweltering, this classroom's freezing, and we were sort of spitballing ideas for how to help teachers with that, but
Yep, that settled down after we had a guy from Mechanical Services come, and he spent like 3 days adjusting this and adjusting that, and that seemed to settle out. It's supposed to be done every year. So, and it hadn't been done for a couple of years, so.
Good.
Any other questions right now? Anyone? All right, moving on. So Mark, we'll have probably by next meeting, we'll have a sussed out budget that shows line by line, do we think?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. And some of the things that were brought up tonight, we'll have more information for you as well. And certainly if John, if you or any school committee members have any questions or things that we can, include, just let us know. We'll get on top of it.
Nancy and I started that process last week, so we're pretty close to having a good draft.
All right. Let's see then. Action items, not showing any, no votes necessary.
No, sir.
All right. Other business?
Whoop, I'm sorry, John. I was going to say
John.
nothing from administration. Sorry.
I've been zooming in on the selectmen meetings last couple of months. Just give an update on the town shed. So after the town voted it down, it's been discussed quite a bit. Looks like the selectmen are going to put it back to the town, essentially, with the hopes of being able to do more education. But the one thing that is the most likely, if they're based on last night's conversations, to disappear would be the covered space for the buses or bus. If it's a tiny piece of the budget, but and I've expressed, just the general school committee's sense that, it's a big investment for the town, all those buses. And yes, not every town does put their buses under cover, but we feel it's a great resource to the town and the drivers of our buses. And that's been reinforced by some. But if anything is going to disappear, it'll probably be that.
Did they say how much of that $1.9 million the school bus
it's like-
piece of
it's
the
like
shed was going to cost?
0.5% or something. It's
I mean, that property is the bulk of that 1.9 million is in site work because
Yep.
they have to do all this work to meet DEP regulations.
Yep.
It's the stupidest project. They should just find a different location to move the whole operation, and they could do that for half the
can't
price, if
find
not
one.
less.
They haven't found one. That's been discussed.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
side conversations with a few people.
Yeah, the one location they did find, the neighbors were objecting and everybody just sort of said, nope, not gonna do it.
But what they have to recognize that they need to look at the entire town of Southwest Harbor, not just the Seal Cove Road
Yeah.
part of town. Oh my God.
Ingrid, don't sugarcoat it. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not part of all those discussions, but there's plenty of frustration on their side as well.
All right. Thank you for the update. Anybody else have any other business? Nope. All right. Do we have any public comment come in the last 1 hour?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
Excellent. All right. So future agenda items. Clearly, we'll have the budget. We'll have more information on our mysterious foyer, which we all look forward to, I'm sure. Anything else? I guess we'll have a little bit of discussion maybe on part of the budget, which are the big projects we want to toss in there, looking at that. So,
John, I just want to say I'm going to be doing a data presentation at the AOS board meeting. If the Pematic board would like me to do something specific to Pematic, I'm happy to do that. Keep in mind, we don't have that much data.
yeah, I'm sure we take what we can get. That was interesting. Anybody else? Any other future agenda items? Nope. All right. Our next meeting is Wednesday, the 13th of January at 5 p.m. Susan, do you know, are you going to be around for that meeting? Are you gone at that point?
I'll still be here for that one. And I really hope that I'm not here for the one after that, but we'll see.
All right. Good to know. Thank you.
Do you have a float plane in Florida by any chance you could lend?
I know somebody.
Ooh.
All right. I think that's it. Thank
I
you all.
just, John, just want to wish you guys a great holiday and thanks so much. I hope everybody's families are healthy and safe. And thank you guys for all the support you give our schools and our teachers and students and everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great holiday, you guys.
Yeah, we
Thank
do.
you, everyone.
Hopefully we get good news in the next couple of days about all those tests.
Yeah.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Probably do we not need a motion to adjourn? Okay.
Susan, you move to adjourn?
I'm out.
Second.
I motion.
All right.
If I don't
Thank
have
you.
one, I make sure there is one. Don't worry.
Okay,
Yeah, great.
perfect.
Okay, good.
See you guys.
Bye.